In this video, I'm going to try to show you the narrative created by F1TV, and I'm going to do it without the audio so that you can separate out the elements. When it's all linked together, when you've got the visuals and when you've got the noise in your ear and it's all meshing together, it creates this narrative that convinces everybody. But by separating things out and explaining the reality of the situation, it helps clarify what's really going on. So first up, I'm just going to show you the true reality in terms of the data aspect of it. What we've got at the moment is the this bar that I'm trying to highlight, waving my cursor along, represents the length of that Abu Dhabi track. So the left hand side of the bar represents them starting the lap, and when they get to this end of the bar, that's finishing the lap. So obviously if you're halfway along, you're halfway around the lap. So what we have, there is a white dot here, okay, of Mick Schumacher, and underneath that's the blue dot of Nicholas Latifi, and Lewis Hamilton, the leader, is currently there. So I'm going to play this through firstly, just so you can see when the blue dot becomes stationary and hence where Hamilton is at that point in time, and then what the lag is between that point in time and when the commentary team announce it and the safety car is deployed, just so we have accuracy of that information. So
Leclerc at bay, but both Ricciardo and Leclerc out of the points at the moment. Mercedes on course to be Constructors' champions for a record-breaking eighth consecutive time, and in a season where the regulations changed ever so slightly, but at their detriment at the start of this season, it's once again a great recovery because they felt they've been hampered coming into this season by those slight regulation changes.
Wow, that feels like a long time ago.
Okay. You can see at that point in time, that blue dot of Latifi's became stationary here. Okay, at that point there, you can see I'm marking Latifi's dot. That is when it became stationary. At that moment in time, Hamilton is here. Okay, now in relation to the bar, okay, the whole length of that bar, where Hamilton is, it's around about 2/3 of the way along. And in fact, that's probably being exaggerating. It's probably, it's fair to say it's at least 0.6 of the way around that lap. So he's got 0.4 of that lap remaining. I think that's fair to say that. It might be slightly less, but I'd rather just err on the side of saying it's just 0.4. Now, let's see how long it is from that point in time. So again, let's just be really clear. He's got the remainder of this lap plus 5 more laps. So 5 laps, 5 complete laps, and this section here, 0.4 of a lap. We know what has just happened. Now, the safety car isn't deployed. And this should go yellow when race control. You should see this top bit here go yellow when the safety car is deployed, or yellow flags are. So let's listen to the commentary.
Go, doesn't it? But yes, Mercedes had an awful pre.
So yellow flag. So it's been noted by race control. Okay, and Hamilton is here. All right. So he's definitely 2/3 round at that point. As far as 0.7 round, probably not, but definitely 2/3 round. So it's noted it almost immediately to yellow flag it. So again, in terms of safety car, will it say safety car? We'll see.
Season test, didn't they? We thought they would be in terrible trouble come the first race.
Oh no!
And the commentators react to it there. So Hamilton's at this point here, okay, which now is probably around about 3/4 of the way, 0.75 around that lap. So he's got a quarter of that lap to go when the commentators react to it. Now let's just play this forward to see if the safety car is deployed immediately and see if it comes up on there for safety car.
Nicholas Latifi has crashed, and I think that is at turn 14, where we saw Kimi Raikkonen crash in practice. It is at turn.
and there's the safety car deployed as it says along the yellow bar just there. At which point in time Hamilton is there. Okay, so Hamilton is, let me just see if I can zoom that in, is just approaching, so Latifi's the blue dot there. Hamilton is just approaching Latifi's crash site at the point in time where the safety car is actually declared. So what I'm going to do is play you through the footage that you will see on F1 TV, and this is without commentary, and I'm going to show you what they showed you, and I'm going to explain this narrative through what you're seeing. Now let's be clear, I've done the data on this. This is a data-driven sport. All of those teams employ analysts. They employ engineers who are data-driven. They employ analysts to devise strategy. Each team's got strategists. If you're a strategist, you will know things such as safety car data. How long will we wait? How long does it take? All right, you'll assess the incident. You will know how long it takes to clear these sorts of things up. What we know from just 1 week previous is that from when Mick Schumacher crashed, 3 1/6 of that 3 1/6 laps of that race went by, and that was the clear up operation. And then at the point where they were inspecting those barriers to determine whether it was safe, they declared it wasn't safe. So there would have been, because you're on to the next lap, 3 1/6 lap of a lap. Well, you're on to the 4th lap there. So there's at least 4 laps going to go by before you bring that safety car in. All right, you know that. The other thing that you've got to bear in mind is there were no lapped cars there, and you have to do the unlapping procedure. That's mandatory. So the situation is this. When a crash happens that the safety car is deployed, then everything is neutralised. All of them gaps that have been built up are wiped out. If cars haven't been lapped, they will all bunch up one behind the other in the correct running order behind that safety car, and the regulations are that that safety car cannot be withdrawn until all of those cars have bunched up. Now, you will see the odd anomaly, and that is when a car has pitted under the safety car deployment, and if there's been a problem and that car has been delayed in the pits and then is left stranded adrift of that pack, then sometimes the race director won't make sure that they catch the back of the pack, because ultimately you've tried to utilize that safety car period to make that pit stop, but because you've lost time at that, well, that disadvantage has occurred due to whatever the problem is in your pits, and therefore that is the thing that's caused you the problem, not being disadvantaged by a safety incident. Okay, so you don't qualify for being gifted that opportunity to make amends for that error by your team. So you will see that occasionally, but the rule is they've all got to close up normally, without that caveat, and that's when you can withdraw the safety car. When cars are lapped, then you have to carry out the procedure whereby when the track is declared safe, the order is given to those lapped cars, all of them, to pass the leader in the safety car, and the safety car will remain out on track for at least one more lap, with the intention of enabling those released cars to make it all the way around and link up with that back of the safety car snake. That is the intention. That is often accomplished under the regulation of it there being that one mandatory lap. And the reason being, if you release those cars, say, halfway around a lap, they essentially get 1.5 laps to make it around to catch the back of the pack. And more often than not, that's enough. So if you manage to get them released in the early part of a lap, the rest of that lap plus the mandatory safety car lap is enough for them to catch the back of the pack. If you release them towards the end of a lap, then sometimes that one mandatory lap given to them with which to try to attempt to catch the back of the pack, it's sometimes not enough, and they won't have fully caught the back of that safety car snake. Massey has demonstrated on 4 occasions that he then kept that safety car out on track for a further lap to enable those lapped cars to fully catch. So Massey, in doing that, has demonstrated that he knows what the rules are, and he knows, all importantly, the purpose of those regulations, which you have to do once a safety car has been deployed in a race and therefore has effectively affected the racing. But everything's been nullified, and the only way we can get going again is if we do all this. Okay, Massey knows that entirely. So that is the key, right? That is the key. Can the race restart validly, yes or no? What is the data? What does the data say? What does the data say in terms of, is it likely whether that race will restart again, yes or no? Well, we have 5.4 laps remaining when Latifi crashed. The data says about 5.5 laps are lost from the point in time an incident occurs until racing can resume. The data, therefore, would indicate a safety car finish. Now, there are freak occurrences, there are the odd occasions whereby incidents are managed to be cleared up quicker than other times. That can happen. So it's not guaranteed to be a safety car finish. If it's possible to clear the incident up very quickly, it may well have been possible to resume it under the regulations, legally. But to do that, what must happen is the cars that have been lapped must be released on lap 56. That way, lap 57 is that mandatory lap given to those released cars with which to attempt to catch the back of the pack, and then the safety car can be withdrawn at the end of lap 57, enabling lap 58 to be a racing lap. It has to happen that way. There are no other alternatives, because it is not possible to resume racing with lapped cars in situ. It skews outcomes, it impedes drivers, it prevents drivers being right on the back end of the car in front of them because they've got lapped cars in between them. So the conditions on the restart are different conditions for each and every driver there. And the key here is the car that was the first car behind the leader, which is Norris. He is now left a lap behind the car that was in front of him, which is Pierre Gasly. Gasly is now in 6th. Norris is in 7th. Norris was only 12 seconds behind Gasly, right? Or less than. But now Norris is a lap behind Gasly, and you can't allow Norris to lose a lap on the guy he was previously was trying to challenge for a position just because another competitor has put it into the wall. That is the purpose of the regulation. But they lie to you. They pretend that we don't have to release these lapped cars. Is the race director going to release the lapped cars? Well, he has done ever since those regulations changed back to this in 2012. Ever since. Each time those lapped cars were eligible, the race director gave the order for them to do so. And yet still, the commentators lie, or they give their opinion as to whether they think it's a good thing or not, without truly telling you the implications of it. So, what I'm going to do now, the important thing is knowing that the data would say that this is most likely to be a safety car finish, okay, and that the only possibility of it being of there being any more racing, to have any chance whatsoever of any racing, is that any lapped cars, which is all of those lapped cars, any cars that have been lapped, must be released by the end of lap 56. They've all got to have passed the leader in the safety car by the end of lap 56. That way, lap 57 can be that extra lap that's required in the regulations, and that's the only way there'll be a racing end to this race. Otherwise, it will be a safety car finish. So what you need to see is whether it is possible to release these cars by the end of lap 56. This is the key, and that is what you need to see. For F1 TV are the company that select the camera angles, the camera shots to show you, and they select the messages between the teams and the driver with which to make you hear what communications are taking place. Okay, and any notifications, banners that get put across the screen, such as like safety car in or lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake, that you'll see that banner. They put these bits of information on the screen because they're in charge of what you're going to see on screen. They're selecting that. So what they need to show you is, from this point onwards, is this going to be possible to release the lapped cars before the end of lap 56? Because if it's not, it's going to be a safety car finish and Lewis Hamilton will become an 8-time world champion. Okay, that is as simple as that. So that is what they need to show you. That's what they need to show the world. This is what they do show you. I'm going to be playing this at a quarter speed and I'm going to be talking you through it. So this bit is going to take some time. If you now want to go onto your settings on YouTube and speed this up to double speed, it's still going to be played back at half speed, but hopefully you'll still be able to hear my voice even if I'll sound like a cartoon mouse. I'll speak fairly slowly, so hopefully you can still understand what I'm saying. So if you want to go onto your settings and increase the speed to double speed now, then it'll just make this bit easier. But I'm going to go through it. So here we go. Right. So, firstly, it should start any second now. It's a bit slow. Lap 53 is what Lewis Hamilton's on. Max Verstappen 11.962 seconds behind. Again, Norris is 11.2 seconds behind Gasly. So Norris is closer to Gasly than Verstappen is to Hamilton. You can see that on that data bar on the left-hand side. And it's around about now, as they're going through this section, that you'll hear Crofty interject with, "Oh no, Nicholas Latifi has crashed." So they cut to that incident. They show you what's on track. You can see the debris for yourself. Okay. And obviously they start talking, and this has completely changed the look of this race. If we get to see any more racing laps, if they manage to clear the car and the debris and we see any more racing laps, oh, there's bound to be a couple. It's the sorts of crap that they tell us, even though the data doesn't reflect that. And even though with now around about 5 laps remaining, they saw the previous week 3 laps elapsed and it wasn't possible that to red flag it. Or well, they did red flag it, whether they had to or not. So you see in the crash site, safety car deployed. We know that Hamilton is approaching this scene as that safety car deploys. So Hamilton might come into view now, he might not. Oh, no, they've cut to his car camera. So again, this doesn't necessarily mean it's live. This could be, track this back a few seconds. They're now showing Hamilton coming on the scene. Okay. Now, one of the interesting things here that I've not picked up on before, I've not noticed this before. I'm going to check some of the other events, but when I bought this, you've got the small miniature tracker view in the right hand corner of the screen. They've actually got the safety car actually depicted on that tracker view. When you look at tracker view, there isn't a dot for the safety car. There is not usually an SC on it. Now, I need to check a couple of other Grand Prix, but from what I've seen, from memory, I'm not seeing another Grand Prix where the safety car has its own dot on tracker view. Now, if you go to the main tracker view on F1TV, it's not there, but it is on this version, which I think is quite strange. What are you seeing now? They could. I'm just going to go back. So you're seeing Lewis Hamilton come by the scene. So I say this bottom corner, you can see tracker view, and you'll see SC when that bar gets out of the way. So they're showing Lewis Hamilton coming by the scene, and you can see SC on that tracker view screen. Hamilton comes by the scene, and what do F1TV now want to cut to? You can see Lewis Hamilton shaking his head there. F1TV cut to Mercedes. Oh, what are Mercedes going to do here? Now, with the gap that Lewis is ahead of Max, Lewis cannot pit and get back out onto track ahead of Max if Red Bull don't pit Max. If Max stays on track when Lewis goes into the pits, Lewis will lose track position. Knowing that it's most likely to be a safety car finish, you don't give up track position. However, F1TV showed you the Mercedes pit crew to put that into your head. Oh, are they going to pit Lewis Hamilton? Let's show you Mercedes and show you the picture of Mercedes. Now we're back to Latifi. Okay. So they're showing you the aerial view. So these cameras are here. It's possible for the commentators to have these cameras showing this bit of footage on their monitors. They can request which monitors, which cameras they are seeing, so that they can describe what's going on and have an understanding of how long things are going to be. So we're not following Lewis Hamilton yet as to his progress, how long left in the race he's got. We're seeing this. I'm sorry this is taking so slow. I tried to do it at double speed so it would be quicker, but that got blocked. So they then cut to Verstappen going into the pits. So rather than this notion of what is the crux of the matter here? Is the crux of the matter what compound of tyre you're on? That's a secondary issue. It only becomes an issue if it's possible to resume racing. It only becomes an issue at that point, because if it's not possible to resume racing, it doesn't matter what compound of tyre you're on, because you're not going to be able to extract the performance advantage of those tyres if you're not racing. So your tyre compound is absolutely secondary at this point in time. The key point is, are you going to go racing again? But they show you that Max is now on these soft compound tyres. They've already showed you, they've cut to the Mercedes pit to essentially say, oh, Mercedes can't pit Hamilton. They've showed you that Red Bull are pitting Max. They've now cut back to Mercedes, and look at these tyres. Okay, now I'm going to pause that. Pause. We've got the tyre blankets, and we've got what looks to be, because they've got the red on the tyre blankets, that looks to be, I would have thought, the blankets for the soft compound tyres. Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. What appears to be here is yellow, something that's got yellow on it. Would that be tyre blankets for the medium compound tyre? Who knows? I don't work for Mercedes. I don't know whether the tyre blankets have got different colours for different compounds of tyres. But what are they doing? F1 TV have chosen to show you the Mercedes garage with these tyres in their blankets. Oh, well, actually, no, I was wrong there, because you saw a glimpse of those tyres, and those were the yellow banded tyres, so they were the medium tyres there. So, they are showing you the Mercedes pit crew. We know that Lewis Hamilton drove by the pits. F1 TV are putting this on your screen. Why? It's irrelevant. The tyre choice is totally secondary to whether or not we can go racing again. But they have showed you this. This is what they've chosen. This is the camera angle they have chosen to show the world. So now what we see is Verstappen exiting the pits. As I say, after F1 TV have showed you the Mercedes garage, the tyres in their blankets in the Mercedes garage, the Mercedes mechanics all a bit, well, we couldn't do it, could we? Look at tracker view in the corner there, the black dot ahead of Hamilton with SC on it. And like I say, I can't recall seeing SC on tracker view. Certainly not on the main tracker views. And whether it is on these little small ones they display on screen during a safety car period, I'll have to double check that. But that seems unnormal. This is the part where Brundle is saying they will let any cars through on the restart. Again, using the word any. F1 TV now cut to Perez. So once again, it's Red Bull bringing a car into the pits and changing its tyres. So it's reinforcing this notion of Red Bull are once again demonstrating that this is going to be important. They're fitting the soft compound tyre onto this car as well. See? Aren't we clever? We are that confident we're doing it with both cars. The fact is, they could, because neither car would lose track position. And, well, let's face it, if you're not going to lose track position, why not? Because if on the off chance it does start, then it gives you the best chance. But again, that is secondary. So they show you on track then. So far, they've showed you this notion of the importance of tyre choice at this point in time. Now, as I say, tyre choice is secondary. The crux of the matter is, can the cars that have been lapped be released by the end of lap 56? Because that is going to be the key. So we're now on lap 54. You can look at tracker view. You can see that black safety car dot is on that straight on the way down to turn 9. But what you're looking at is Verstappen's car heading towards turn 6. So we'll see what the next camera shot is. Like I say, this is what they select to show you. They're interjecting with the Lewis Hamilton message. That's unbelievable, man. Is this the one where, is he behind me? He won't, but he will be on the restart with fresh tyres. We don't think it's going to restart. Okay, so this is the narrative. Cut into a different camera angle, showing Verstappen coming around the track. It's likely that this... So, again, what do we do now? We cut back to... So we're cutting back to this. Alright, we cut back to this, and we can see that Latifi is out of the car, but they've now deployed... Well, they've set off that fire extinguisher to put out the fire at that front brake that was on fire. You can see Latifi standing there just above tracker view. So, what are they going to show us now? Again, look at tracker view. Look at where that black safety car dot is. Oh, well, they've just got rid of that now. So, but we're not far away from being upon this incident, and they cut away to the replay. And it's not far from around this point in time where Fernando Alonso is, he goes past that crash site, sees Latifi's there, sees that the fire extinguisher goes off, and Alonso's the one that's saying, we need to unlap to get this job done, otherwise it'll be too late. Which isn't authentic, because we should unlap now. Well, you've just come by the incident and saw a crashed car still on the side of the track, and you're suggesting we need to unlap now to get this job done. Not authentic, Alonso. Not authentic. So this is yet again another replay. Are we getting a clear picture of where these cars are, where Lewis Hamilton is, where the safety car is, relative to, well, how many laps have they got left? Where are they on track? How long is it taking for them to go round each lap? What's the likelihood of us being able to see what's going on? What's the likelihood of the track being cleared and them being in a position to release those lapped cars before the end of lap 56? Instead, what we're seeing is a replay. Okay? We're seeing a replay. So you can see how long they spend showing us replays rather than spending the time talking about where they are on track, what needs to happen in order to have any chance of seeing a racing end to this race. They're not giving us the truth. They're not giving us the reality of what needs to happen in accordance with the regulations of the sport. They are lying and presenting all sorts of different scenarios. Oh, are we going to see any more racing? Are they going to release the lapped cars? You don't necessarily have to do that. And if they do, how long are they going to wait for them to, for them to get out of the way before we go racing again? All of that is going on. What jeopardy? This, and again, what we're seeing again, another replay. We're not seeing what is truly happening and the relevance to what needs to happen if there's going to be a valid restart to this race. So from here, having showed you multiple replays of it, you can see the debris. Some are shot off over the track. Although it's got replay in the top of the screen, they're now cutting to Lewis Hamilton. Okay, so it's the in-car view of Lewis Hamilton replay. Now, what is that showing you? It's just showing you driving by the pit entrance. So that would have been his first time round there, having passed Latifi's crash site, and it's now showing you Lewis Hamilton's. Some people won't have picked up that that's a replay. It's not live because he's behind the safety car. The safety car would be in view now, right ahead of him, if it was live. They didn't interject a sound, and so what they've done now, they've cut to the Mercedes garage now. They've once again cut to the Mercedes garage with the mechanics there, with the tyres. See? They've cut to this to show you, Mercedes and their tyres, and they're now carrying these tyres back into the pits. F1TV, once again, showing you the tyre situation. See? Is it relevant? It's only relevant if we get to see any more racing. What's relevant about whether or not we see any more racing? So are you going to show us what's relevant about whether or not we see any racing, or are you just going to create the narrative of, oh, look at the tyre situation, look at the tyre situation, look at the tyre situation. Okay, I'm not bothered about the tyre situation because the tyre situation is secondary. What I need to see is what is happening with that Nicholas Latifi car. Where is this relative to that? How long is it taking for each of these laps? Because if each of these laps is 2 or 2.5 minutes, how long is it taking for them to clear it up? If it's going to take them 12 minutes to clear the thing up, which isn't abnormal, and it's taking 2.5 minutes for one of these laps, well, there's your 5 laps, isn't it? All right? So we need to see that, but they're not giving us the true picture of enabling us to be able to make that decision, make that observation for ourselves, to work out for ourselves the likelihood of this being cleared up in time. Again, if you look at tracker view now, that black dot with SC on it isn't there. Again, need to check back through some past races to see if it was actually there, but that looked like a strange thing, I have to say. So we know where we are now. We know that we are coming down that long straight top of the screen on tracker view towards turn 6. Can't remember what they're actually saying at this point in time. Still hyping it up, no doubt. This is lap 55. Again, apologies this is taking so long, but this seems to be the only way, well, I'm hoping is the only way I can actually show you what they showed you. Otherwise, I just can't show you the footage. And it's important because it's the footage that creates the narrative, and it's showing you this, making you see this, because you seeing this makes you believe the story the way they want the story told. Whereas if the narrative for the story was different, you'd understand the story a different way. We cut back to Mercedes. Oh, Mercedes, what are Mercedes thinking? Mercedes weren't able to pit Hamilton. Red Bull were able to pit Verstappen. Oh, this is all going to come down to that moment, that strategy, that fact that they couldn't do it, and they're all sat there just bemoaning their luck that they just couldn't do it, or maybe they should have done, because then Hamilton would have followed. Sorry, the Verstappen would have followed them in too, and they'd have both been on the soft tyres. They want to create all these falsehoods, because the reality is, had Hamilton have pitted, Max Verstappen would have taken the lead of the race, because Red Bull would not have pitted Verstappen, and the race would have ended in accordance with the regulations behind the safety car. That is the way the season narrative was. They gave Verstappen everything else. They'd have given him, well, they wouldn't have been giving it him. Mercedes would have thrown it away, because it wouldn't have been giving it to Verstappen. They would have just conducted this race in accordance with the regulations, and there could have been no argument. That race would have ended behind the safety car, and Mercedes would have given up track position foolishly. They'd have been fools to pit, because the Red Bull strategists, they know how long these things take. They're some of the smartest strategists there, so they know the data. we cut to the Red Bull garage. So again, we're showing you, oh, Mercedes, they are so frustrated they couldn't pit. Red Bull, they're feeling quite confident because they did. So look at what the marshals are doing now. You'll see them sweeping, you'll see them picking up bits of debris. You will see again on that tracker view that the safety car and the cars following the safety car are approaching that scene. They're a couple of corners away. It's highly likely that these marshals will be able to hear so that they'll know that this is approaching. They'll also probably have somebody spotting, telling them that this safety car snake is approaching. So what you will see is these marshals will try and make sure they are out of the way. The ones that are doing the sweeping, look at them. They will get themselves close to this Armco barrier to get out of the way of these cars. Some of them are starting to jump over. They're being beckoned to get over to that track so that they get themselves off the track before the safety car snake arrives, or they get themselves over to the side so they're not in the middle of the track when that safety car snake comes upon them. But rather than show that safety car snake arrive on the scene, they cut to another replay. So again, you don't get the reference point of seeing that safety car snake go by that scene. Instead, they cut away, and in doing so, you're left somewhat disorientated because you're not seeing the reference point of saying, okay, this is the clear up operation, this is where they are. Oh, Lewis Hamilton has just passed that. Oh, they've got to get this cleared up now within the next lap, because these lapped cars need to be cleared, be released the next lap, because the next lap is lap 56. But what are we seeing now? We're seeing the replay. We're seeing the replay of the crash. Okay? So the key is, between now and, well, all of them lapped cars are going to have to be released before, say, ideally turn 9, because when we get into the windy section, cars making it through the pack to unlap themselves becomes a bit more difficult. It's a lot easier for cars to go past and unlap themselves down them straights. So really, the order needs to be given well before turn 9, so that they can make a few cars go after turn 9, but it just becomes a bit of a slower process. And they're still showing us the replay. So we now cut back to the start of lap 56. Okay, 3 laps to go, which means this is the key lap. Those lapped cars have to be released on this lap. All 8 cars have to be released this lap. That way, lap 57 can be that mandatory safety car lap that it stays out on track for, and then it can come in at the end of lap 57. That can only happen if the lapped cars are released this lap. Nobody ever states that. No commentator says it. But what do we get now? Red Bull retire Perez. Oh, what's happening here? Right, so the key point is the lapped cars being released this lap. But what is the focus of our attention? Red Bull are retiring someone. Which one is it? Is it Max? Or is it Sergio? Oh, it's Sergio. Oh, Max is still there. That's okay. That's okay, everybody. Max is still there. This is Sergio. We need to retire the car. We need to retire the car. Box. Really? Yeah, what are you surprised about, Sergio? Didn't feel like there was anything wrong with that car, did it, Sergio? So with 3 laps to go of the entire season, and an outside chance of Red Bull winning the Constructors' Championship if Sir Lewis Hamilton doesn't finish the race, and that then means that Red Bull would have gotten a 1-2, and therefore would have become Constructors' champions, rather than gamble by keeping him on track for those 3 laps, lapping at safety car speeds, which aren't stressing the engine anywhere near as much as it would be at racing speeds, they decide to throw away any chance of that Constructors' title, which apparently Mercedes won $177 million for winning, and I think Red Bull got $100 million. So there's a difference of $77 million. Not saying that would have been the same had the places been reversed, because there's some sort of bonus for consecutive titles, but there's still a significant amount to be won, which means bonuses for your staff and all these sorts of things. Shareholders wanting payouts, kudos, prestige, extra extra kudos for your sponsors. You've thrown all that away. And we've cut to the Mercedes again. Mercedes mechanics walking away, looking frustrated, looking like, oh God, what's happening here? Oh, shaking our heads. This is all going wrong for us. So we've seen the Red Bull retirement of Perez, and then we cut to this where we get the message from race control, which says lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. That's not a standard message at all. They report it as being a standard message. The standard message is overtaking will not be permitted. Lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake means nothing. Does that mean if you've been lapped, you're not allowed to overtake someone, but if you haven't been lapped, you are allowed to overtake? Does it? See? Doesn't mean that at all. Because it's not a standard message. They made that up for this event. When you're wording regulations, they're not ambiguous. They are for a certain purpose. Lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake means nothing. Because you could say, well, I'm not a lapped car, which means I am allowed to overtake. So, see, it's a rubbish message. But that comes up on the screen. So they've showed you Perez's retirement. Then they cut to that. And lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. Okay, which means Max Verstappen will have a lot to do, because he's got to fight his way through these 5 cars that are in between him and Lewis Hamilton. They'll all get blue flags, of course, which is again this embellishing the lie by adding further detail to the lie. And that's not possible because it's not in accordance with the rules. But they make it sound as though it's just normal. Yeah, he'll have to do this, but they'll get blue flags. But Lewis will be long gone. Okay, that's again the narrative. We cut back to this notion of the safety car and Lewis lapping behind the safety car, because as they're doing this, they're still talking about this notion of resuming racing, and yet the announcement's been given that lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake, and all that means in reality is that it's not safe to do so. It is not safe for them to do so, because were it safe for them to do so, they would have done it. They would have done it, because then there would be no argument. There would be no controversy. If they could have done this without cheating, then there's no grounds for an appeal. So it's quite simple. Anybody that wants to argue otherwise, just use your head. If they could have done this, if it was safe, if they were not endangering people, they would have. Then there would be no arguments. There would be no controversy. They would have released the cars on this lap. When that banner came up, lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. Were it safe for them to release them, they would have done it. The fact is, it wasn't safe, so they couldn't do it. That will be proven when we get round to turn 14, when you will see the marshals still on the track. But because it wasn't safe, because you couldn't release them, that meant it was a safety car finish. It's simple as that. We are on lap 56. It's not safe. We now get F1TV interjecting with that message from Red Bull to Verstappen saying, cancel that. Lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. Oh, typical decision. I'm not surprised. It's classic, isn't it? Yeah? Look, everybody, how hard done by a Red Bull. This is the message that took place down that long straight in between turn 5 and 6. Had quite long gaps in between each of the communications. That was all edited now and played to you now to tell the watching world that Red Bull are being hard done by. And look at where we are. We're around about turns 10 and then on to 11. So we're approaching the scene of the crash. And this is where Crofty's going, oh, I'll be objective here. So what do Red Bull want? So we cut to Red Bull. What do Red Bull want? We get the narrative. What does one team want? What does the other team want? Look at the emotion. Get rid of the emotion. What are the facts? What are the rules? What's possible under the rules of the sport? Look at all these people on the edge of their seat in Red Bull, feeling now hard done by because those lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. We're saying our prayers at Red Bull. What's going to happen? That's what's going to happen. Those marshals are only departing the track now. And as a result of that, that's the reason why lapped cars were not allowed to overtake. That's why they didn't do it. And look, they're still there. They're still there. They're still there. The clerk of the course is not going to declare that track safe until now at the very earliest. You'll message the race director. Then you'll get the message now for those lapped cars to unlap. And who needs to unlap still? Well, the Haas you see at the back is the last of those lapped cars, Mick Schumacher. Is he going to make it past all those cars that are in front of him? And look who's ahead. Okay, in front of him and past Hamilton and that safety car before the start finish line? No, he's not. We're now on to lap 57. And it's going to be a safety car finish. There you go. Safety car finish. At that moment there, essentially, as long as Lewis Hamilton kept it on the track, Lewis Hamilton became an 8-time world champion. Because this race was destined to be a safety car finish from that point in time. 56 of 58 laps completed where rules weren't broken. But Martin Brundle, now that we're on lap 57, is saying, but I think the safety car will come in at the end of this lap and we will have one more racing lap. Because they've primed everybody with this notion that you can restart the race with those 5 lapped cars in place and they'll all get blue flags and Max will still have a chance of trying to catch him in that one last lap. They've primed you with that thought. And then F1TV choose this as part of the narrative. They interject with the radio message from the Red Bull garage, Christian Horner. Christian to Michael, why aren't we getting these lapped cars out of the way? Because Christian, I'm trying to deal with this incident. We only need one racing lap. That's the kind of message, probably not word for word, but that's what F1 TV want to play to the world. We only need one racing lap. Yeah, we only need one racing lap. Yeah, come on, what's going to happen? We only need one racing lap. The disappointment. The empathy, everybody. You can see how Red Bull would feel. They feel that they're being disadvantaged. They feel that you're not giving Max a chance by leaving those cars in place, which you wouldn't normally do. We're on lap 57. What that message gets broadcast whilst we're on lap 57, and even if you release them this lap 58 is a safety car lap. There is no chance of a racing lap. Why would F1 TV? Then they cut to Mercedes. Let's have a think what Mercedes think about this. So think about that. We don't know when that message from Horner to Massey took place. That was recorded. F1 TV, who are showing you the narrative, they choose to broadcast that on lap 57 when they know for sure the rules and regulations, because they're the ones that are at every race and they see it happen time and time and time and time again. So therefore, if that's your job, you know what can happen. If you are camera crew for a football match, for part of the Premier League football camera crew match, you know the rules of the sport. You know what to be focusing your camera on. Okay? You know that if you're the director for that footage, you don't play to the world bullshit messages. On lap 57, that's a bullshit message. Why aren't we getting these lapped cars out of the way? Green light on the safety car there. Why aren't we getting these lapped cars out of the way? We only need one racing lap. Well, that's not how it works, Christian. Because now we're on lap 57. Even if we release them this lap, the safety car will be doing another lap, which means it will be a safety car finish. So, chill your beans, Christian. They didn't do that, did they? F1 TV chose to play that message to the world because they created that narrative. It is that simple. They created that narrative all the way through with the tyres. Oh, look at Red Bull's tyre situation. Look at how frustrated Mercedes are and their tyres in their blankets. Look at the Mercedes garage. Look at how frustrated their mechanics are. They're all the ones that are looking so frustrated that they've not been able to put Lewis onto the tyres. Look at the tyres. Oh, Red Bull have also managed to get Perez onto those tyres as well. Oh, this is a no-brainer to be on the soft compound tyres. But let's look at the Mercedes garage. They weren't able to do it. Oh, what jeopardy. Is it all going wrong for Lewis now because of the tyre situation? Race control is now saying lapped cars to overtake. And we'll list out these 5 cars, that the 5 just in between first and second. We won't worry about the ones in between second and third that could be blocking off third from challenging second. We'll just list out these 5 here. And once we get through to saying, just as we finish saying the name of the 5th car, then you, Martin, you cut across me and tell everybody it's ending. So, Norris, Alonso, Ocon, Leclerc and Vettel. And it's ending. Wow! Michael! See, look at that. FIA radio, Mercedes. Michael! They had that queued up. Because they have to give a nod to the fact it's not quite right. But they have to then back that up with showing us Toto. even though he's not got his headset on. So that clearly is not happening right that moment, is it? Because his microphone wouldn't have picked that up because he didn't have it in front of his mouth. So we've now got just one lap to decide the World Championship, the last lap of the last race of the season. Incredible. You couldn't make it up, could you? You couldn't make it up, could you? Well, they did. That's the truth. They did make it up. They made it up. This is before the rules were broken. Right from the start, it was the tyre narrative, rather than the only thing that mattered was all you need to focus on, audience, is whether or not these lapped cars can be released before the end of lap 56, because if they can't, it's going to be a safety car finish and Lewis Hamilton's going to be a world champion. They did not draw that to your attention. They didn't tell you about that. They lied about what was possible. They lied about the rules of the sport. They presented the narrative of tyres. Straight away, it was all about tyres. All about tyres. And they reinforced that many times by cutting to the Red Bull, or what are Red Bull doing, what are Mercedes doing, tyres, 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 what are Red Bull doing, what are Mercedes doing. And then on lap 57, where you knew those cars weren't released, F1TV interject that Horner message, which is irrelevant. Why aren't we getting these lapped cars out of the way? We only need one racing lap. They show you that on lap 57, where that's not allowed. They've chosen to play you that on lap 57. Because even from that point onwards, if the lapped cars are released, lap 58 is still a safety car lap. And then it's a massive surprise. Oh, what's he done here? Oh, he was under so much pressure because it was Christian Horner on the radio to him. All narrative. It's a constructed story. It's a constructed ending. All that took place before this so-called pressure and error was making you think about it a certain way. It was directing your thoughts. It's a narrative. They lied about the rules of the sport. They lied about what was possible. They kept you guessing. They kept you disorientated. They kept you questioning your own version of reality. What are we going to see? Are we going to see any more racing laps? Oh, what jeopardy? Oh, what's going to happen? We don't know. Well, you're not showing us. You're showing us replays. You're showing us what the pits are doing. You're showing us which tyres they're going to be on. Oh, are we going to see any more racing? Are they going to release the lapped cars? And if they do release the lapped cars, how long are we going to wait before they get out of the way? Look at how they're telling you this. How many times do they tell you each of those things beforehand? They prime you. They say it so many times to make you think that these are valid possibilities before the error, the so-called error, occurs, which then makes that happen to set this up. Setting it up, knowing that they've broken the rules, to set this up, knowing that one car had the chance of being on these tyres against the other car that didn't have that chance. That's fixing an event. That's fixing an outcome. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. And they describe that as Red Bull had nothing to lose. Red Bull played some clever cards. And yet throughout that, every message between the team and the driver, and that's every team, wasn't authentic. Because those teams knew that those lapped cars had to be released before the end of lap 56. Otherwise, it's a safety car finish. You've got drivers desperate to unlap. Desperate. When are we going to get unlapped to get this job done? If we don't unlap, it will be too late. Too late for what? Too late for what? You know, if you're Sebastian Vettel, are you that bothered? Alonso? Let's get this job done, otherwise it'll be too late. Too late for what, Alonso? The extra place that you may or may not make up, that's going to affect your championship position by what? What's this job done? What are we setting up here? The sport-wide big grandstand finish? Is that what it is? Getting this job done, setting up the last lap shootout, the grandstand finish. Everybody, teams, wouldn't it be good if we made sure this is a grandstand finish? Because then this watching world audience, this 108.7 million people will be so excited, then they'll be forever fans of the sport of Formula One. So there'll be loads more money involved in the sport. All the teams will be so much more richer. All of your sponsors will pay more money because more people are watching the sport, more eyes on their brand. You'll be able to charge more money when new companies come and want to sponsor your car, put their names on your car, because they want a piece of the action and get their brand advertised to a global audience that's now much bigger. So you can charge them more money. Cha-ching! Everyone's a winner. So, if we have to just freestyle it a bit at the end to make it happen, just go with it. Okay, just go with it. Oh yeah, we think they might start it like this. Oh, it might be that the safety car's coming in at the end of this lap. No, none of that is authentic. And yet the teams are saying that to their drivers. The teams are saying that to their drivers. This was fixed. 100% fixed. The entire sport fixed a sporting event. That is fraud. That is fraud. They used the media to convince you of some sort of authenticity to it. No media has ever told the truth about this. This is worldwide media has never told the truth about this. They've never told you the truth about the safety car rule. They focus on this notion of, oh, the problem was, what was really bad was only 5 of 8 cars were released. But Red Bull say, well, even if all 8 were released, then the outcome wouldn't have changed. Oh, yeah, but you've forgotten about that mandatory safety car lap. Oh, yeah, that's not important. Well, it is, because that dictates it's a safety car finish. That means this lap doesn't take place. This means that Lewis Hamilton wins that race because it's a safety car finish and he's an 8-time world champion. But instead you contrive this. And when the stewards do their report, they go, oh yeah, we agree with Red Bull's version of the rules that have never been like that before and aren't true. We agree with this notion of the race director being able to do what he wants. Not carry out the regulations which impact the drivers so differently. Block off 3rd place from challenging 2nd. Leave 7th a lap behind 6th, when previously he was closer to 6th, well, closer to that car in front of him, Gasly, than 2nd was to 1st. But now he's left a lap behind. Then regulations don't allow that. But the stewards went, yeah, we agree with that. And then the government, the governing body went, oh yeah, we'll do a thorough investigation into this. Yeah, we've done a thorough investigation and we're happy with it. It's all fine. And the media go, yeah, it's all fine. He fully deserved it anyway. He led the most amount of laps. He fully deserved it. Look, everybody, this was the best thing you've ever seen. Nobody deserved to lose. Both deserved to win, but You know, there has to be one winner and there has to be a loser. And you're now watching one of the best that you've ever seen. Narrative. Absolute narrative. Constructed. The entire sport. From the top down. From the top down. The owners of the show, Liberty Media, Red Bull, the FIA, all of the teams, all of their media are involved in this. And as Boy Tendio says, what was commentated on was commentated by at least 30 different commentary teams commentating in at least 30 different languages. And there's two guys, at least two people in each of those commentary teams. So at least 60 people commentating on this event, different languages, all part of the show, all employed, all contracted. None of them could point out what the actual rules and regulations are, and the fact that those lapped cars had to be released on lap 56, otherwise it was going to be a safety car finish. They couldn't do it. These are your so-called experts. These are your so-called former drivers, former professionals, people that you are presented as being experts, having expertise, and yet they don't. They seem to have amnesia and not know the rules of the sport. Just go with it. Just do what we tell you to say. Go with what we are telling. Go with what we're doing, and convince everybody of its authenticity. It was a complete fix. Entirely manipulated.